Not gonna lie, after the month I had, I might need to go back to therapy. Hello, I'm Elizabeth and welcome to my channel. We're gonna do a get ready with me while I talk about the crazy last month of my life that started on a great high on my very first cruise, was doing amazing, and then ended at the end of the month with getting laid off. I have never been laid off before, never gotten fired. It was very rough emotionally, physically, all of that, and thankfully within 10 days I had a new job, so I get to share about that, I suppose. Welcome to my channel. I'm gonna just do my makeup and talk about what happened because it was low-key traumatizing, and I genuinely wasn't sure if I could create any content like in the middle of all that. I've seen people on TikTok like create like day one of getting laid off, and I was like, how are you creating content? Because for me, I was barely functioning, much less create. I can't seem to find my headband that I've been using to push my hair back out of my face, so we're just gonna raw dog it here and hope for the best. Anyway, I was working as a social media manager. I had been there 10 months and I really did enjoy my job. I got a lot of networking opportunities as well as creative opportunities. It stretched my skills as a social media content creator, as well as strategizing and just working in like corporate communications. I went to college for TV, journalism, and communications, so I did not focus on PR in school. It never crossed my mind to take PR classes until it was too late, basically in my senior year. And then I was like, wait, if I don't want to work in TV news, how am I gonna have another job? Because all of my classes have been TV news. And then I scrambled to like find a PR class and took like PR 101 my senior year. Now I have worked in TV news for 5 years. I was kind of burnt out on it, and I was very happy to transition to corporate communications and work as a social media manager, and I thought everything was going fine. I had my performance review in December. I got basically A's across the board. I was told like they were really happy with my creative ideas, they were happy with my work performance, and I was even told that I would get a job promotion. Like my role was going to be renamed from social media manager to digital content director, and would come with a salary promotion as well. And I was told, you know, that we're gonna work on doing that in the budget for 2025. And so I was very content with my role. I was excited for the potential promotion and looking forward to it. Things were just going swimmingly in my mind. Everything was fantastic, and I don't want to bash the company where I was working. Like, I want to leave as many bridges unburned as possible. I think they tried to burn the bridge between me and them. I feel that's a bit one-sided. Anyway, so I will say that my manager was in a new position within our company, and I did feel like she was increasingly not available. Or as a social media manager, you're creating content for the company and you would need approvals to post, and I would create like a week plan at a time and share them in teams, and I rarely was getting any feedback on the content that I was pitching and posting. And honestly, I felt like I was running blind for the last 6 weeks I was working there. There was very little feedback. And the entire month of February, I saw my manager in her office twice because of like travel that she was on, vacation that she was on, and other work responsibilities that were taking her out of the office. And you know, to each his own. Like, since I have started working there, I will say that there was a lot of self-management. I wasn't being micromanaged, which I can appreciate, but I don't need to be micromanaged. But I did want feedback and I was not getting really any feedback for the first 2 months of the year, and I thought we were just going through a weird phase and it would like smooth out as we finished different various events and projects and things would get back to normal, is what I thought was going to happen. Also, the week after I was laid off, I got 2 L'Oreal packages, which is really cool. I got this new L'Oreal Fresh Wear foundation. It's the Infallible line, and I actually really love it. It was just funky because I had gotten laid off and I got these packages in the mail, and normally I would have been like enthralled to get, you know, packages or PR, but I was so distraught and anxious that I couldn't really enjoy the PR I was getting, and I felt bad. Like, I was like, hopefully I get a new job soon, otherwise I'm never gonna open these PR packages. Anyway, so March comes and I am going on vacation for a week. So I created 2 weeks of content, which was the normal workflow that I normally did. And when I came back from vacation, my manager was out of the office for a week, so I was then in the office by myself It was spring break, so there was actually like quite a few people out of the office for the week, but that wasn't unusual. It happened in our office, and I just didn't think anything of it. Like, I didn't think anything weird was going on. I had been feeling unsteady because of the lack of feedback, and I'm the kind of person who, when I'm feeling anxious or unsteady, I chat with my fellow coworkers. I'm like, hey, are you getting any weird vibes? And I just feel like normally it depends on your coworkers, of course, but my coworkers assured me, you know, that there were phases like this that would happen, and, you know, our manager would be back on the normal schedule soon and wouldn't be having as many out-of-town trips and, you know, business responsibilities, and I could then push for more feedback as we went further on in the year. We all felt like the workflow was different and we just needed to figure things out, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I wasn't overthinking it, you know. It never crossed my mind that this would lead to anything, you know, too negative. And then my manager came back from spring break and we started the fourth week of March. And on Monday, normally I would prepare the social media plans for the week in advance. And so my manager turned to me and said, hey, can you get 2 weeks of social media plans, because next week, well, she didn't really say why, but the first week of April, there were a lot of events and business meetings and things like that were going to be happening at the company. So I figured for that first week of April, she wanted the plans in advance because there was just too much going on for her to look over them. So I said, sure. So Monday, Tuesday, I worked on socials and other projects. And then Wednesday, I submitted the 2 weeks of social content in advance. And my coworkers teased me. They were like, look at you. Like, doing 2 weeks of socials at once when you're not going out of town. That's kind of weird, isn't it? And it was kind of funny, but none of us like were overthinking it, especially not me. It never crossed my mind that this was anything out of the ordinary or weird. So as I said, I submitted the content on Wednesday. I sent the Google Doc with like all of our social plans for the next 2 weeks, and then I went home, had a very regular Wednesday, and then went to work on Thursday morning, and I was just having a good morning. I was working on a advertising project that I was very excited about, and I was just working on various projects that were in the pipeline for the spring, and a new series that I wanted to do for the content and for like our channels and different things like that. And then around 9:30 that morning, I got called, or my manager texted me and said, hey, would you mind coming up to the HR office? And I was like, sure, that's weird. And I remember I picked up my phone to go up to the HR office and my key badge, and I was like, am I in trouble? Like, this is weird. But I really was like, Liz, like, you're overthinking, like, you're just overthinking. And I walked into the HR office, and my manager and the HR lady was sitting there, and they said, oh, good morning, how are you? We hope you're doing good. I was like, yeah. I'm like, looking around like, this is awkward. I can just immediately tell that they're tense. And immediately HR says to me, well, we called you in here because we've decided to do a corporate restructuring and your role is no longer available, and we're going to go ahead and let you go. And that was, I immediately, like, I just knew it was, as soon as I was called up to HR, I just had a bad feeling. And I've never been called up to HR before, and just something about it, like, when I walked in, I was like, this is bad. And so when she said it to me, I was like, oh, I know. Like, I knew this was going to happen. It was like something that I knew was going to happen, but I wasn't letting myself actually believe that my anxiety was correct, because most of the time I'm overly anxious about things, and I am more likely to be anxious and proven wrong than I am to be anxious and proven right. You know, I get anxious about everything. And so I'm sitting there and they're telling me this, and I'm just like, I really can't believe it. Like, there's a pit in my stomach, and I start trembling, and I think to myself, like, do not cry. Like, do not cry in front of them. And my manager, I will say, the last time she spoke to me was the Monday that I was like, oh, she never said a word to me throughout this whole meeting, didn't say goodbye, nothing. And then they handed me some paperwork, and they let me go in the middle of the 1 to 2 week pay cycle. So I was in the end of the first week of the 2 week pay cycle. So I was told, like, I would have 1 week of severance, which is the second week of the pay cycle. So I would have one final paycheck, which would be the total, like, my paycheck would equal 2 weeks of work. So that was their definition of severance. I disagree tiny bit that was severance, but I'm grateful that I got, you know, a full paycheck for my very last paycheck instead of 1 week of work. When they hand you the paperwork to be eligible for severance, you need to accept it right away. So I'm reading the paperwork, and one of the things, for example, one of the things in the paperwork that I did not read until, like, did not comprehend after I was let go was, so because this company, I had a lot of events. So for example, early in March, I drove 25 miles to an event. That was one way, 25 miles there, 25 miles back, and normally I would have been reimbursed for the gas, and then you submit your reimbursements at the beginning of the next month. And when I was let go, I was thinking, oh, I guess I'm not gonna get reimbursed for that gas check. And I was kind of like, what if I do want to get reimbursed, because gas is expensive? That was 25 miles, 50 miles in total. And it turned out in the paperwork that I signed, it literally said, like, you will not hold the company liable for any, it uses a different word, not reimbursements, but after I read it like 4 or 5 times, about the 5th time, it clicked with me. Oh, that's what it's talking about. So when you're handed this paperwork and you need to sign it by the end of the day in order to qualify for your severance, you're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. So you're just feeling like, oh my gosh, I just got fired. I know they're gonna say it's corporate restructuring and you're getting laid off, but it feels like getting fired. Yeah, so I signed the paperwork and my hands were really trembling, but thank God I wasn't crying, because I didn't want to cry in front of these people. I don't like to cry in front of people who hurt me. And I worked on the 2nd floor. This was on the 3rd floor, and I had a really cute office setup. So I had a lot of things in my office. So the HR person walks me down to my office and she said, you can get your purse. And I was like, what about like all my decor in my office, you know, things that my mom has given me and friends have given me over the years that I like set up. Like I even had this elephant. I had a friend who was from Cameroon, and she gave me this elephant from Cameroon, and that was like the first thing I thought of. Like, sitting at my desk, I don't want to lose my Cameroonian little elephant, because it's from this special friend of mine who I haven't seen in years, but she lives in Africa, so I will never see her really. And I'm about to get walked out of the building, and I was told, like, we will pack this up and mail it to you. Like, you're not allowed to pack up your desk. You're not allowed to say goodbye to anyone. We're just gonna walk you out the back stairs and walk you outside. And that was just really hard. Like, I did get my things from the company. They did put it in 2 boxes and send it to my apartment, but being forced to leave everything behind for someone else to pack up who has no emotional connection to my things was really hard. Like, I don't want someone who doesn't care to touch this stuff, because to them it's just stuff, and to me it's special. It's my memories. It's special to me, and I don't know, maybe that's really funky and like really weird, but that was probably the hardest moment, was being forced to walk away from my desk and not being allowed to pack my own box. And then I was walked outside. As I said, my manager didn't say goodbye to me. None of my coworkers were even in the office at the time. The only person there was my manager and me. So they didn't even know until later that day. And the only reason I was given, you know, was corporate restructuring. And as we stepped outside, my HR person said to me, you know, this isn't about you. We think you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to respond to that. I'm trying not to cry, and thank God I did not cry in front of her. I just said, okay, and like, I walked to work, so I had to walk home. I did start crying on my walk home, which was horrible because I don't like crying in front of, like, it's Thursday morning in the middle of the city, like downtown area, like there's business guys walking back and forth, and just like, here I am crying, walking home from work, that I will never walk back to again. Anyway, that was very hard. Of course, I got home and immediately called my boyfriend and text my friends, and just like, I was full on sobbing when I got home, and I just had like a full sobbing breakdown. And then I got laid off, you know, 9:45 in the morning. By 11:40, I had submitted my first application for my next job. So I was, you know, I can't go without a paycheck. You know, I have 2 weeks and then I'm not getting paid anymore. So I need to be working as quickly as I can, you know, updating my resume, doing everything that is necessary to land a new job. And as I said to my boyfriend and to all my friends, I said, you know, my week of severance goes through April 4th. I want to start a new job April 7th. And people were kind of laughing at me, like, they're like, that's not possible, Elizabeth. But, you know, everything is possible with the right bit of you know, combination of luck, determination, and stubbornness, and that's what I have, you know? I'm a redhead. I get the worst luck and the best luck because, you know, the redheaded stepchild thing is true. But I know people say it's a joke, but if you know my life, you know I'm the redheaded stepchild of life, and I was just determined I could not go without a job because I was very scared. Like, how am I gonna pay rent? How am I gonna pay my car payment? How am I gonna feed my dog? How am I gonna feed myself? How am I gonna buy coffee and groceries? And this economy is not one that you want to be laid off in. And how am I gonna tell my parents? Which I did not tell my parents till I got a new job because I just could not be that. I couldn't do that to them. I couldn't tell them I lost my job and I was unemployed. Thank God I got a new job and they never knew that I was unemployed until I was re-employed. Anyway, I'm gonna grab my eyeshadow and then I'm gonna talk about my new job so we can end this video on a happier note. Okay, let's talk about my job hunting process. So the first thing I did was look at local TV stations that are hiring in my area because I have 5-6 years of TV news experience. It's what my major was, what I graduated with. I made more money in TV than I was making as a social media manager, so I could go back to the income I was making a year and a half ago. And you know, I took a pay cut to not work overnight. I did not want to work overnight, but I was willing to work evenings and daytime, you know, regular 9 to 5, as well as work evening news. The problem for me with working in TV news is since I've quit, I've really enjoyed the freedom of being able to be as politically active as I wish. And that is not something you can do in TV news. You have to be politically non-active. So I was a little dismayed about that. I was like, I'm willing to go back to work in TV news. It's a job. If I was rehired at the station where I originally worked, I would work there, you know, for at least 18 months or 2 years to get, you know, because I quit before the 3 years of my previous contract was up. So I want to treat them as well as, you know, if they give me a job again, I want to be as faithful to that company as possible. To be loyal, faithful, whatever word you want to use. I don't want to just come in and work until I find another job, which I was willing to do. And so I applied to my old TV station. Didn't hear back from them. I think that they're not interested in rehiring me, which is, I'm not taking that personally at all. And then I applied to another TV station in town for a digital content producer and assignment desk, which is the person who writes all the stories that go on the website and also answers any of the phones that come into the newsroom. And then when there is breaking news happening, they're calling the police, they're calling dispatch, they are assigning reporters, assigning photographers, they are like running the operation that brings in the news that is being reported. And in my mind, that job is extremely difficult. And often people who work the assignment desk work it for like 30 years or longer. At my previous station, the assignment desk fella, his name was Frank, he was older. I think he'd worked that job like 50 years. He knew every official in this town by like their nicknames. He could find and he could sniff out any store. So they had an opening for their assignment desk, and they do a combination assignment desk digital content producer. And while I know it's not going to pay, you know, $100,000, I was thinking that it was a good, decent job. And so I interviewed with them, and then I found out it was only 18 an hour, so about 32 a year. And I just can't do that because number one, it's a commute. It's over 20 minutes from where I live. So I'd have, you know, a 45-minute drive daily, and my rent is probably, that's way more. Like if I was earning 30 a year, my rent would be like 80% of my income, which is ridiculous. Like I cannot, so I couldn't even accept that job. If I had taken it, I would have had to find another job, part-time job. Now it was an evenings and weekends job, so I would have been working, you know, from 2 to 10 each day. So I could have technically worked in the morning, but I would have also had to work weekends. So genuinely, I don't think they would have even offered me the job. I interviewed with them. When I was interviewing with them, and the lady interviewing me said, well, this is the income in the hours that we would offer you. I think she saw my face and she knew that like that was not something that would have worked well for me, and I would have quit as soon as I found something better. And that's not what they want to do. They don't want to hire someone who's going to quit right away. So I kind of knew I wasn't going to get a job offer from there after that interview, just because I didn't mean to be rude, but I think she could just tell by looking at my face that I was not going to stick around in that job for long. So that was the first interview I had. The second interview I had, a friend of mine that I've met through working and living in downtown Jacksonville said, hey, you know, my law firm that I work at is always hiring if you're interested in working there. I'm not gonna name the law firm because I don't wanna ruffle any feathers. And I'm super grateful that this person tried to find me a job, you know, as quickly as I could, as was possible. So I interviewed at this law firm for a legal secretary position. I didn't know the difference between a legal secretary and paralegal. Paralegal, you have to, I think, pass a certification. Legal secretary, you don't, but it's doing a very similar work to that the paralegal is doing. And because this is a personal injury law firm, you would have been like calling insurance companies, calling clients, making notations in client paperwork, and just doing a lot of the grunt work that the legal team would need done to settle a case before it goes to court. And I'm familiar with law. I took the LSAT. My dad just graduated from law school. You know, I have always been interested in perhaps going to law school, but I have decided, you know, the debt that is necessary to go into law school for me, I probably would not want to practice so heavily or bill as many hours as necessary to pay it off. And also, once you're at a firm, it's almost impossible to do social media, and like you can't take any brand deals or paid endorsements for most legal firms. So because of that, I had not pursued law school as intensely as I had considered in 2022. And I enjoyed the legal secretary interview. I was like, I could see myself doing this. I'm very detail oriented. I'm quick on my feet. I could fight for clients. Like, I would be happy to fight for clients. But at the end of the interview, to be honest, when I told them, like, these are my salary requirements, I need to earn as much as I was earning in my previous job in order to pay my bills, or else I will need to get a part-time job also. And this job is an 8 to 5. It would be working long, hard hours, and there's no work from home option. It's fully in the office, and it is an intense job because it's a law firm. I was told this was also an $18 an hour job, and I just thought that was kind of peculiar for the type of work it is. It's an intense work that is necessary for the success of their legal cases. And because I know these lawyers are taking in like 30% of the earnings, and this law firm is consistently on their social media sharing, you know, that they've won $1.5 million cases. I see at least twice a week that they've won $1 million cases. I struggled to connect the dots between you've won $1 million case that your lawyer got 30% on at least once this week, and I would be part of that team that is winning those cases, as to only earning $18 an hour and working 8 to 5 daily and only getting 5 paid holidays off of the year. That just felt crazy. And maybe I am spoiled. Like, I'm very spoiled. I've had really good jobs that have been very flexible. Even working in TV, I earned a lot of vacation, and I earned a good income for the role I had. And, you know, I earned a good enough income that taking a small pay cut of like $4,000 for the social media management position did not extend my finances as harshly as it could have. But going from that to $30,000 a year, like cutting my paycheck in half, is just not feasible without radically getting rid of my apartment and getting a roommate, which is almost impossible because my dog does not do well with roommates. As I have previous experience, when I had a roommate, my dog was extremely anxious, and I can't get out of my lease until August. So I would be 4 months earning half as much and still paying the same amount of rent. And that's just not something I could see happening. I was really struggling with that possibility. So to give some context, I was let go on Thursday. I had my first interview on Tuesday with a TV station. I had my second interview with the law firm on Wednesday, and I was still actively applying. I applied to around 35 different jobs by Thursday morning. I had gone to the law firm, done that interview, and they immediately scheduled me up for a second interview, and I was willing to take it because I needed an income by the middle of the month. Like, I couldn't afford to not be working. And I went to And I was continuing to heavily, you know, reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn, message everyone after I applied to jobs, like find the hiring manager and message them. I was updating my resume for every single application that I was applying to. I was writing covers, specific cover letters for some applications. I was working as much as I could. And I was treating, the hardest problem for me is I would literally wake up, walk my dog, make my morning coffee, sit down, apply to jobs from like 8 a.m. to 11, take a shower so that I, you know, step away, take a shower, and then apply to jobs from like 1 to 4, go walk my dog for an hour, come back home. And I was so anxious that in the evening I would feel guilty. I would struggle to not be applying to jobs in the evening, not be like on LinkedIn just scrolling and saving every single job I could find, knowing that applying in nighttime is not a great idea, so just save it for the morning. And people said online, you know, I've seen people say, if you're job hunting, treat it like a job, you know, work 8 to 5 hunting for jobs. But the problem for me is I couldn't turn my anxiety off at 5 and not be job searching. And that was the roughest part of the whole process, was the 24/7 anxiety and just feeling nauseous all of the time. My hands would be trembling as soon as I would step away from my computer. Even walking my dog, I would feel like jittery. I just was so freaked out about not making money because when you don't make money, you can't pay your rent, you can't feed your dog, you can't feed yourself. And I was very emotionally overwhelmed and felt like a failure. Like I must have done something to get fired. I messed up somewhere in life and didn't realize it. I messed up somewhere is what I kept telling myself. And even though, you know, my former coworkers had reached out to me and said, it's not your fault, you know, this happens to people. To be honest, you were the third person this has happened to in this role. That's what I found out after I was laid off. And people kept saying, you know, this isn't your fault, you will find another job. But even with all those wonderful affirmations from friends, family, my boyfriend, I really was emotionally a train wreck and just internally anxious. So Thursday morning, I had applied to a marketing position, I think on Tuesday, with a marketing firm in town, and they reached out to me Thursday morning and said, hey, are you available to chat? Do you have some times? Sent back some times. They said, we would actually love to chat today, you know, this afternoon at 3. I said, fantastic, and planned to speak with them. As I'm scrolling on LinkedIn after talking to them, I had seen a mutual friend of mine from college. He had posted a YouTube channel manager position a few weeks before, and the position was closed. So I was thinking, you know, that sounds like a cool job. Not really sure 100% what it entails, but the position is closed. So I don't need to reach out to him. I had seen that literally the day after I'd been laid off, but I had resisted reaching out to him because it said the position was closed. So as I'm scrolling, I thought, there's no harm in DMing him. I mean, we went to college together. We haven't spoken since 2019, but he's a nice guy. His wife was my prayer leader because I went to a Christian college, and every 4 dorm rooms was set up in like a quad, so they have a prayer group. And his wife was one of my prayer leaders like 2 years in a row because she was a really nice person. I think I requested her as my prayer leader. Like I was like, I want to be in her prayer group because I really liked her. She was just a really calm, nice person. And her husband is like a very creative, ADHD kind of guy. And he and I connected, like hit it off because we have like very similar vibes. And his wife is like the opposite of me. She's like completely calm. And I always thought it was interesting because when I had last spoken to him, you know, 2019, he was a youth pastor. And then he went into the YouTube creator industry. And I was like, how did he jump from A to Z? Like, I just don't see the connection there, but that's cool. So I saw he posted the position. I thought, well, why not? So I DM'd him. I said, hey, I see that you work in the YouTube space and you were looking for someone in the YouTube creator, like, management industry. I've never been a YouTube channel manager, but you know I have a big YouTube channel. Actually, I didn't say that. I said I have experience in social media and I have worked in TV news. And so I would love to hear more if that position was still available. Sent that to him. He DM'd me. Like, he replied late Thursday, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. And when he replied, I was like, whoa. He said, you know, I would love to hop on a call with you. I might have a position that just opened up. So I said, sure. And I was like, also had this conversation with the marketing firm, and they were trying to reach out to me. So I reached out to the marketing firm. I said, hey, are we confirming a call? They said, yes, we'll call you at 3. They called me at 3. I talked to them for 20 minutes or so, and they asked me to come back for a second interview the next week. And when they asked, when can you start, I fumbled because I had never gotten the chance to say, hey, I was laid off, I can start anytime. And my resume says that I ended at my previous company, you know, March 2025, but I could tell in the interview that they assumed I was still working there, and I couldn't figure out a way to say, hey, I don't work there anymore. They were like, what do you do? And I would say, well, I did this. And I just felt like very unsteady about the fact that that they were very familiar with the company I worked at, and they've partnered with them, they're business partners, they know the CEO and everything. And I felt like they did not know that I was laid off, and it was just making me very anxious. And I was like, okay with a follow-up interview, but it is an 8:30 to 5:30 every day. The office is a half hour from me, so I'd have to commute an hour at least each day. And it's a family-owned company. Nothing against family-owned companies, but it's a very small business. Everyone who's worked there has been there, you know, 20 years or so. And then coming into that, the company culture is not very Gen Z, and I am a younger millennial, so that I would have to adjust to an older company culture, which is fine. I can 100% do that, but I could tell that I was going to have to like quickly like be different. And I was like, after I got off the call with them and they were very excited to have me come back for a second interview, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to be working with a husband and wife team who are, you know, 40 years my senior, and I'm going to I've got to adjust to that kind of company culture, which is cool. I can do it because I need a job, but that's going to be a rough transition, and it's going to be very different from working in TV news, which is more laid back, especially depending on the newsroom, and it's like chaotic, but nobody's judging you for like how you're interacting with your coworkers, to my last job where I had a Gen Z coworker, and it was a very casual coworker acquaintances, to working directly with the CEO of a company as their marketing manager, like offices next to each other in the office, 8:30 to 5:30 every day. And his tone in the interview was very brusque, and I could tell I'm going to struggle with having that like brusque business only nature. Like that's going to be a rough transition for me, but I was like, I can handle it. Like I can do it. I can do anything. And then I had this call at 4, and I was like, I don't know, is this a scam? Like I genuinely was like, I know this guy from college, he's a good guy, but is this job like a scam? Like I don't even know what his company name is. So I hop on a call with them at 4, and I was very tired because I just did, you know, this is my 4th interview in 1 week. And I hopped on the call with him, and it was just such a fun like chat. It was just like immediately we clicked, just like we'd been back in college. You know, he said, I showed Candace, his wife, he said, I showed my wife your message, and she goes, oh my goodness, I love Elizabeth's YouTube. She does so good with YouTube. And he's like, I haven't ever watched her channel. He's like, it's not his wheelhouse of content. He's like, but my wife was like, oh, she 100% knows YouTube, so she would be good at this job. And it is a YouTube job. It is a channel manager for YouTube channels. So you're running channels, you know, smaller channels, bigger channels, clients who create content but don't necessarily want to be in the weeds to grow their channel. They have other business networks and opportunities that they're focused on, and his company is a startup. It's been around for a year or so, and he is excited to like be bringing in new people, and he was looking for a channel manager. Specifically, he had 3 clients in mind that he was looking for a new manager to run their channel, and he was looking for someone who is abreast of celebrity news, of pop culture, and who was familiar with TikTok and, you know, what's popular in there, and the transition from TikTok content creator to YouTube creator, which is kind of my wheelhouse. And he was looking for someone who has experience as a YouTuber, who knows social media, and is reliable and can jump in and quickly learn a system and just be happy to be on board. And I like fit the bill, like 100%. What he was describing, I was like, I can do that. I didn't even know this was a job, but I can do that. And what's so cool is like, because it's a startup, they don't really like, I don't feel judged that I was laid off. It was like, oh yeah, you got laid off, no worries. He said, when can you start? And I said, you know, I got laid off last week, so I'm happy to start next week. And he said, yeah, we'd love to have you start April 7th. And genuinely, we got off the phone, he talked to the company co-founders, and I had a contract offer in my inbox by 9 o'clock that evening. And I was genuinely like so happy. Number one, I don't have to go talk to the law firm on Monday. I don't have to worry about working in a company culture that's going to be rough transition. And also the terms that I was offered, like the contract that I was offered, the income was higher, was like more than what I was making. It was still like, it's still, you know, it's actually the income that I wanted. Like, it was the exact number. He said, how much do you want to make? I told him, and they said, sure, we'll give you that. And it's just like everything. I've been working at this company now 3 days, and I absolutely love it. It's like brainstorming how to get people to grow on YouTube, optimizing SEO for channel growth and analytics, and it's all these things I knew in the cloud, like in the nebulous. Like, as a YouTube creator, you think you know this and you know that, but like I had no, it's like taking a crash course in like being the best you can be on SEO optimization on YouTube, and people who've actually worked with youtube.com, like not YouTubers who just like are good at their channels, but people who've worked with people at YouTube to grow like celebrity and network channels. And I get to do that. Like, I get to do that. It's like I've already had like 5 hours of meetings yesterday with clients and coworkers, and it's just like absolutely insanely cool. And this is my life now. I get to work fully remote, fully from home. I have a company laptop, which is amazing, and I love it. Like, and everybody in my life, I was like telling them about it. Some people were like, that's exciting. Other people were like, is it a scam? I'm like, no, it's not a scam. It's a real industry. But like, it's not like a very advertised industry, because if you are a celebrity and you have a massive YouTube, you don't really push the people who are actually running it behind the scenes, which I totally understand. But a lot of influencers hire other people to run their channels once they've reached like a certain channel growth that is like hard to manage. And I'm so excited to be that person, and also continue to like post to my own YouTube, and I can, you know, be online, be an influencer, do all of those amazing fun things that I already do, and not really have to worry that it impacts my job, because I can 100% do my job and also do the influencing fun stuff that I do on the side. And you know, working in corporate, where I was working, there was concerns for me personally that like what I posted on my Instagram could like react negatively in the community, whether that was because I was a Democrat in a very Republican company or different things like that. And I just constantly was like nervous and like muting people at my job from seeing my Instagram, which is interesting because people at my job who never had followed me, like the COO and like important people in the company, once I was fired, were like watching my Instagram stories every day, and that was very, very nerve-wracking. So yeah, and I don't think I will experience that at this job. I think it's like, it's a startup, it's young people who love social media. Young people, they're older than me, but it is a lot of people who love social media, who love the world of influencing, and who understand what it means to be a content creator and work full-time. So yeah, it's been a journey. I didn't do an April reset. I didn't edit anything. I haven't created or videotaped anything because the last 3 weeks has been insanely chaotic. I went on a cruise with my boyfriend. I didn't really film on the cruise because being on a cruise was a lot different, very different from what I expected. And then my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that was an emotional roller coaster. That week there was a lot of difficult conversations with my parents, and then immediately after, I literally had a 2.5 hour conversation with my parents about her diagnosis and like the future and where they're living and blah 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 on Wednesday, and then I got let go on Thursday. So it was an intense week of March, and I feel like I'm finally getting grounded and getting my feet back under me and getting creative again, or like having the energy to actually create content, which is what I want to do. And yeah, loving it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions about like job hunting, job advice, you know, my new job, how to become a YouTube channel manager, reach out to people you know on LinkedIn is my #1 advice. And let me know what you're thinking, because I don't know what to even say here in this video. I hope to write a Substack about this, so check out my Substack, and I'll see you guys all over the internet. See ya.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.